Thank you for those that come. We have Dan Richardson with KLJ. He's going to give us an update on various flood control projects that are going on in Miles City, because we do have more than just the 205 happening. So take it away, Dan.
Great, thanks. Good evening. So like Sam said, my name's Dan Richardson. I'm a professional engineer, certified floodplain manager, located in the KLJ's Helena office. Just a background on myself real quickly for those there. My specialty is in hydraulic modeling design, but I also manage and work on multiple other types of projects, like for permitting, site grading, transportation, municipal types of projects. And so kind of cover all kinds of different things. Been with KLJ for the past about 9 years, and been working with Miles City on various projects, flood control type things for seems like almost that same amount of time. So kind of one of the more recent ones that I'll be talking about later here is the master plan, that stormwater master drainage plan that we put together for Miles City, addressing some of the internal drainage there. So, and currently kind of working on that one and the levee project as well, aiding the city on both those different projects. So with that, see if I can get this to, there it goes. So the update that I'm doing here, just like Sam said, it's a kind of an update on the different flood control projects that are going on. The update is going to focus on the 3 current flood control projects that I'm going to be talking about for the Tongue River levee, the Yellowstone levee, and then the interior drainage project, or is referred to as a slough project from a lot of different people there. So just a quick clip shot just to explain what the extents of these projects are. Now, the levee extents may vary a little bit. This is more a high level overview just to show where things are. But the Tongue River levee, which was a topic of discussion here just on your last presentation in red there, protecting the city from the Tongue River flooding. The blue there is the Yellowstone River levee, which protects from the Yellowstone River. And then the interior drainage is basically everything on the dry side of those 2 levees, which ultimately drains down to the yellow, which is the Tongue River slough there. So they all are intertwined and connected. And so kind of be talking about all 3 of these different systems here. Let's see here. So why are these projects important? Well, I guess I've got the 3 main reasons here: is to the safety of the residents, protection of the structures and property, and ultimately by completing all 3 of these projects, it will build a more resilient community for Miles City. And ultimately the result of that will be a certified levee, which will and the end result will be these three items here. So I'm going to start just on the levee projects update for these 3 projects. The Tongue River levee is currently being designed by the Corps, and it was discussed as said on the previous presentation. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on that one. The Yellowstone levee, which is protecting from the Yellowstone River, there is one that we're currently working with the city and researching funding options for the project and applying for grants to aid in the funding for both the design and construction. It's a significant cost of the project, and so we are actively looking for funding options for the design and construction for that. So the picture I have up here is kind of one of the reasons, one of the main reasons we're doing these projects is, as you can see, that in the blue there, that is the current floodplain map, which is showing the city being inundated by a 100-year 1% chance flood. So by getting the levees in and interior drainage addressed, this map can be updated to have the city not be in the floodplain here, not be inundated by storm events. So that kind of brings us to the internal drainage project, or a slough project. So I guess first of all, what this I guess the definition of that is in the levee. It's a barrier between floodwaters and the communities such as Miles City, and without an outlet to the river, the rainfall, snowmelt on the land side would back up behind the levee and possibly flood in the community that the levee is supposed to be protecting. So for this reason, the levees, they often include culverts, canals, ditches, storm sewers, and pump stations, or referred to as called interior drainage systems, which will ultimately take the water from the land side over the levee or through the levee out to the water side. So kind of on this little picture I have here, say the river's on the left-hand side and the dry side, the interior drainage on the right-hand side there. So ultimately it's to keep the water from flooding the stuff that we're blocking the river from coming in. We want to make sure we can evacuate it out to the wet side of the levee. So this is kind of a high-level overview of what the interior drainage project is. So currently there is funding for this project through some ARPA grants that the city has received. And so we are actively getting this particular project going. The most recent round of ARPA, the competitive grants, was a round 2 that we applied for the city of Miles City. The city was awarded, I believe it was ranked number 12 on the funding list for round 2, which is high enough to receive the funding for the project, which will be for the design and construction of this particular portion of the project, or of the system. So I'm just going to go kind of over just an overview of what this interior drainage project will entail and kind of how it works, I guess. And so, because this is the current one that's going to be under design and construction once the design gets completed here. Currently, there's the slough that I had highlighted in yellow earlier, and that's ultimately where a lot of the storm drain or stormwater from the interior ultimately makes it to. And so it will either drain through a storm system in the city, or just overland flow, or somehow will make it there. The current slough, as many probably have visually seen, there's culverts missing and certain road crossings, or the ditches, or I'm sorry, the slough is not necessarily graded with positive drainage to actually make it all the way to the north end of the slough. So it backs up water, causes potential damage to property owner or properties throughout the slough there. And then once it does make it to the end, if the Yellowstone is backed up, the exit culvert for there has a gate on it, a flap gate that will close when the Yellowstone is under flood conditions, and so therefore won't be able to evacuate the water. That valve or flap gate's there to protect backwater flow from the Yellowstone, making it like backing into the slough. So it protects it, but then also causes backup of the slough as well when water ultimately gets there. So with this interior drainage project, there were essentially, well, I guess we're labeled them 1, 2, 3, and 4 here, but 1 is to basically do nothing. So the first project would be to build a storage pond, which is in blue on the upper right there, with a lift station, and then also to reconstruct an overflow channel or weir from the slough over to the pond, so that when it does start backing up, where it can't get into the Yellowstone, it's going to back into this overflow pond and be stored there during storm events, so it doesn't back up and damage any of the city's infrastructure that is nearby there. In that pond, there would be a lift station design that will pump the water up and over the levee or through the levee, so that it can be evacuated during larger, I guess, flood events from the Yellowstone. So it has a way for the water to get out of the interior drainage system. And it's sized for, this whole system will be sized for the 1% chance event or the 100-year storm event. So it's a large enough pond that can store the water during these events, and then evacuate the water over the levee, and ultimately getting the pond dry and until the Yellowstone reduces in flow and the flap gate from the slough will be able to actually drain again. So that's the first portion of the project. We broke these up so that if funding wasn't there, we can kind of build these in phases, but luckily the funding was awarded so we can do all these different projects in one larger project. So this next alternative or project would be to install new culverts all through all these crossings that are adequately sized for the 1% chance storm event. So it's looking through how big all of these culverts need to be and making sure there are culverts at the crossings that don't have culverts currently, and installing those ones appropriately. And then the last one, which is a big one too, is to regrade the slough bottom. And so that is going to address the like what's currently happening right now, where the water is not able to currently drain out of the slough. It'll be able to actually flow up and out with positive grade all the way out of the slough there. So thus helping protect the adjacent property owners. So again, like why does the city need to reconstruct the interior drainage? Because for same reasons as the whole project, and it is also addressing the interior drainage is necessary to have an accredited levee. So I've kind of got a little clip out here of NFIP regulation that is talking about interior drainage, and it has to be designed and addressed to evacuate interior floodwaters for the 1% annual chance flood event. And so this is kind of just the reason this one's going is because it has to be done as well in order to have the accredited levee, which is what the ultimate goal is to achieve for the system. So kind of further reasons, I've got a couple of pictures up here for these three projects. So things like these pictures don't happen. So these couple pictures are the kind of backed up water of the slough and flooding that's just inundating all kinds of land there in the other picture. So really the reason we want to do all this is to prevent this from happening and having flood events that are going to inundate the town. And then finally, so that the city's protected from large storm events, taking into account the ice jams that many of you have probably seen here in the pictures, and so that things like this historic picture never happens to Miles City again. So kind of with that, those are the updates to the 3 flood control projects. I've got my contact information, my email and phone number up there for if there's any questions that come up or anything, feel free to reach out, and happy to discuss these projects as they are moving forward. And they're all pretty much in preliminary stages right now. The slough is probably the one that's in the furthest along on design, but I mean, we're kind of just getting going on that one as we speak. And the funding was just awarded, so we're going to be moving on that one the soonest. And the other ones, I guess the Tongue River presentation previously talked about that one, and then like I said, the Yellowstone is currently actively addressing the funding for that project. And with that, just open up for any questions that anybody may have in regards to these projects or any of the flood projects that's happening in Miles City right now.
Dan, before you do questions, I do want to give everyone a quick update too. For the Yellowstone portion, there are 3 grants that are out there that I'm applying for to work on the study and the design of the Yellowstone right now. We're hoping that we get those so that we can go through that, because the design of the Yellowstone right now is about $1.8 million. But that is to get us toward hopefully applying for infrastructure bill money, which will be used to hopefully construct the Yellowstone portion of the levee. And another thing I know you probably noticed if you read the last one also, that part between the confluence and the Yellowstone Bridge, that's really up in the air on how we're going to fund out. I want to try and figure out what's the cheapest way No, I shouldn't say that, not the cheapest way. The most cost efficient way for us to be able to build that, if it's better for me to try for grants, or if it's better for us to try for, go for the GI study. And so that's been kind of a holdup, because as you've seen, just the Yellowstone or the Tongue River can cost up to 64 million, and that's including a little bit of the Yellowstone. But these, yeah, you said it earlier, that the costs just keep going up and up and up, and I don't know how we're gonna pay for these unless we just keep pushing for these grants, but I also want it to be as cost efficient for the citizens as I possibly can. So it's a lot going into it. But I guess if anyone has questions then from here.
Yeah, and that's what, like that one picture of the overview, I guess, and go back to that real quick here. That's what you were talking about, Sam, as far as the, whoops, there it is. That area here is the kind of where one stops, where one begins. I think that's the one that's still, we're working on that. So it's kind of a high level thing right here. So this is not probably, this may not be the exact break point, but I think that's kind of what you're talking about, that portion, I'm guessing, right here.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Does anybody have any? Oh.
So is there, the slough area, that's still in the planning?
Yes. So
Stages,
right now-
or is there gonna start work on it, or?
the slough, we got funded for the whole thing, which includes the planning, the design, and the construction. It must be done by December 2026, or we lose
Correct.
that money that we can spend. So there, we have to have it done by then. We got funded for the whole thing. Dan is going to start working on this stuff. We're actually going to present it before council June 28th for approval.
28th.
We will be awarded. Yeah, June 28th, right?
Yep, correct.
We should get awarded the money sometime in June, so we are able to go, that is 100% funded, so there's no cost share or anything on that. So that was nice. We were not able to get the same, we did apply for that for the Yellowstone River, but we did not score high enough on that to get that funding for that design.
So the design that I was talking about during this presentation, that was developed in a preliminary engineering study, like plan that we had done. And so, yeah, once we, June 28th, after kind of we get everything all approved there, we'll go into the actual more detailed design of actual sizes and all that stuff. But the preliminary design was done in order to come up with costs and everything, so we can apply for grants like the one we got.
And MDT is redoing that highway there. And so we are coordinating with them, so it all gets done at once. So that way construction is not happening and it happens again. We will coordinate with them so that any work that gets done there in the slough will be done in conjunction with that project.
So when is that, you know?
I believe that starts next year, either next year or in 24. It's coming up very quickly. Dan, do you know exactly when they're starting the MDT? I know you've been in contact with them.
I'm not sure the exact date that they're starting it, but they have the design, I think, pretty close to being complete, is my understanding. So it could be next year when it starts, and there's a good chance of that. But I don't know the exact date, no.
Any other questions? Okay, Dan, I want to thank you for your time and your presentation today. I
Yeah.
want to thank everyone that joined, and if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. And yeah, I'll probably see you guys in October then. We'll have Dan give an update probably then too, along with the Corps, and hopefully we'll have money. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the questions, and if there's anything else, please let me know.
All right. Thank you, Dan.
Yep, thank you.